On behalf of the Center for Rebuilding Sustainable Communities After Disasters at University of Massachusetts, Boston, I'd like to welcome you to the 2015 CRSCAD International Conference and Exhibition on Rebuilding Sustainable Communities in Afghanistan, The Way Forward. I'll be your facilitator for this morning. My name is Sonia Durai. We do have a slight change of our program. Our original keynote speaker, Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, is under the weather, feeling ill, and is unable to speak today. So we have an improved agenda that you will have before you. We have a panel starting at 9 a.m. this morning, Rebuilt Afghanistan, Preserving Hard-Won Gains, Ensuring the Sustainability of the Reconstruction Effort in Afghanistan. We'll have a break at 10 o'clock, and we'll restart at 10:30 with our second panel, A Rebuilt Afghanistan. It is my pleasure first to introduce the University of Massachusetts Provost Winston Langley to welcome and open today's proceedings.
Good morning, and welcome to the University of Massachusetts in Boston, known as a center from which attention has been paid to matters relating to human disasters, human-made and natural. We have been involved in activities of this character for a number of years. Indeed, we have had several conferences, the first of which began in 2008, in which our Department of State joined with colleagues from this hemisphere, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, etc., gathered to discuss and to look at the rebuilding of sustainable communities after disaster. Since then, we have had like conferences involving China and Haiti and Indonesia, and Japan, Iraq. So a discussion on the ongoing reconstruction in Argentina is not entirely novel to this campus. But we have new colleagues with us today, distinguished guests, some of our own students, our deans, including one who happens to be new. And I want to say a special welcome for those who have braved the difficulties of getting to this building and this site because of ongoing campus construction. This is not a disaster area, I assure you. I think this century is likely to expose us as moderns, if I may use the term, to difficulties we had not anticipated, some of which we have begun to face and seek responses to. In part because we must. And it is one thing to think of responding to disasters and building communities after disasters. It is another thing to learn from those disasters, see what we can prevent, and where we cannot prevent, we engage theoretically and practically in post-disaster reconstruction. This conference will be seeking to do exactly this. I hope as you look at Afghanistan, the ongoing war, the ongoing effort at reconstruction, the cross-sector involvement, the role of women, the mainstreaming of women, matters of human rights, matters of human resiliency. We'll also learn a number of other things, namely, what is it about us, human beings, that allows us to delay response or responses to imminent dangers like climate change, the ever-widening gap in the areas of poverty, which can lead to some of the disasters we speak of. And I hope we learn something else from ourselves, namely, how is it that collectively, from within our own wreck, we can create something that is sustaining. It says something about our individual and collective capacities, and how, if properly directed, many of the difficulties we face may in fact be prevented, not the least of which are conduct which may help us, as the Pope recently indicated, to deal with the environment in our common home. I'm very pleased to welcome you and want to say thanks to Dr. Watona and the Center for Rebuilding Communities After Disaster and the team that has organized this effort, and to say thanks to sponsors of this effort, and to say thanks to all of you who have come on a summer's day to pay apt attention to this very important topic. The University of Massachusetts, Boston, that prides itself in attending to the most vulnerable in societies, in being inclusive, in its emphases in education, in its commitment to civic engagement, welcomes you as a common traveler in the pursuit of its values. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Provost. Very inspiring to get us started this morning. And I'd like to now welcome Dean Philip DiSalvio of the College of Advancing and Professional Studies.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be among those who welcome you to the Conference on Rebuilding Sustainable Communities in Afghanistan. As Dean of the College of Advancing and Professional Studies, I can say we're proud to collaborate with Dr. Awatana's Center in the McCormack Graduate School. Through CAPS, CRSCAD offers programs and courses in post-disaster reconstruction management. And I commend you to explore those programs. Those courses and programs are really are aligned with the values and knowledge required to follow through with what I think Dr. Awatana's vision suggests. Since 2007, the Center has played such an important role in raising awareness for long-term sustainable reconstruction. And with today's focus on Afghanistan, we welcome you, we welcome the experts who will serve as keynotes, Ambassador Wilson, guest speaker Larry Sampler from the Office of Afghanistan and Pakistan, USAID. And I just want to say and express my compliments and admiration for Dr. Awatana, the visionary who is the driving force behind this conference and all efforts that search for the most appropriate and sustainable ways to rebuild communities after disaster. Dr. Awatana, Professor of Urban and Community Studies, Director of CRSCAD, he's an activist, he's a scholar, he's a researcher, he's an author, he's a bridge builder, and a leading thinker on capacity building for sustainable post-disaster reconstruction. UMass Boston is fortunate to have such an individual. Let me mention to you Dr. Awatana's latest accomplishment. Many of you might not know it. Having published the work of many noteworthy academics, Cambridge Scholars Publishing is showcasing his series, Rebuilding Sustainable Communities After Disaster. This series continues to attract wide critical acclaim from eminent scholars, including the chair of UNESCO on sustainable development. This research, I think you'll find compelling, is based on the Center's work in writing and scholarship. And I commend you to explore it. So, on behalf of the College of Advancing and Professional Studies, again, we welcome you, and we know you'll find value in today's conference. I want to say a couple of words about David Cash, my new colleague and the newly appointed dean of the McCormack School. We're very excited to have David here. He's the former commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And I know you will give him a warm welcome. I have to say, Dr. Langley mentioned he's new. He's starting his second week today, and he's still with us. Thank you, thank you. So, David, on behalf of one of your colleagues, I welcome you. And thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Dean DiSalvio. I am going to also be welcoming Dean David Cash, who is about to give us some remarks. The Dean is from the John W. McCormack Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies. So welcome to our panel.
It is truly a pleasure to be here this morning. This is my first official speech as Dean, and I want to thank Provost Langley and Dean DiSalvio for that very warm welcome. And thank you to Professor Awatana and the whole team, including Sonia, in putting together this day of work and reflection and planning and finding a path forward. It's kind of interesting for this to be my first official event, because as I was contemplating this position over the months of discussions with faculty, with the provost, with other deans, I realized, and I had, as Dean DiSalvio had mentioned, I came from state government, where I had very hands-on work with cities and towns. I was involved in some of the response to some of the major natural events that hit us here, whether it was Hurricane Irene or Sandy. I can say that when I left state government 7 months ago, I hadn't really considered a position in academia that much, because I was very interested in continuing to do hands-on work that affected people's lives every day. And when I first found out about this job and first read the job description, the 8-page job description, I became incredibly excited, because the commitment of UMass Boston, the commitment of the McCormack School, the commitment of the many colleges on campus to leveraging research and leveraging teaching to affect communities, whether they're communities that are a quarter mile here or communities that are halfway around the world, has been incredibly powerful. And as I learned more and more about the university and more about the McCormack School and the other colleges on campus, the more excited I got about the possibility of working with colleagues and communities, again, to leverage research and understanding and knowledge in a way that can affect everyday's people's lives. So this is particularly exciting to be here. The rebuilding after disasters is not something that only happens in one part of the world or after wars. It happens all over the world. And every community that's hit by a hurricane or a tsunami or civil strife or riots, as we've been experiencing in this country recently, asks the same kinds of questions and needs to figure out a path forward in the same way that we're discussing the path forward here. Now, of course, the recommendations from the conversation today are not going to be the same recommendations that could have been used after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, but maybe it would have been very helpful to have figured out how reconstruction and rebuilding in one part of the world can potentially influence decision-making in other parts of the world. And I see that the effort today is exactly that kind of effort. What can we learn? And it's not just simply lessons learned. It's how can we take methodologically sound research, get findings from that, and use them in the way that can produce a better outcome, a better world. It's rare to have a conference in which there are academics, research academicians, who are sitting next to architects and designers and planners. That's an extremely exciting mix of expertise and interests that come together. And it's that crucible that we're creating here. It's that crucible that attracted me to UMass Boston. It's that crucible of bringing research and practice and teaching all together in the same place. And so today I'd like to welcome you to this conference. I'd like to bid you the kind of open and candid conversation that can happen in these kinds of settings, so that in fact we can collectively figure out how we can create a way forward, again, not just in Afghanistan, but in places throughout the world that are struggling to reconstruct and rebuild their communities while maintaining human dignity and human rights and economic prosperity and development, and for those changes to be sustainable politically, economically, and environmentally and culturally. And that's what we're here for. So I wish you luck today. Again, thank you very much for the creation of this exciting day, and I wish you very well. Thank you.